Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Drive Clean. I'm Larry from ammonyc.com, where we're obsessed with driving and protecting cars. Now in today's episode, we're going to be working on a 1958 Porsche Speedster. Now the paint is totally wrecked, so we're going to restore it. That's all coming up today on this episode of Drive Clean. Before we get started, I want to thank all you guys for the emails and comments I received since the first episode. They've been spectacular and I'm really grateful for them. But the cool part is I've actually kept track of everything you suggested, and we're going to try to incorporate them into the upcoming episodes. So for today, we're going to restore this 1958 Porsche Speedster. Now I think the problem was they washed it improperly and nobody took care of it, didn't put a cover on and left it outside. So the paint is totally wrecked. Now the first question you want to ask yourself is whether you want to clean, protect, or restore the paint. Now, obviously in this condition, it's so bad, we're gonna need to restore the paint. Now the second question is, what year is the car and has it been repainted? Now, this particular car is a 1958, but it's been repainted in modern times. So now I know there's clear coat on it, I can approach it differently. Now the third question is a little bit more complicated. It's deciding whether the paint is hard or soft. We're going to talk about how to figure that out in the upcoming steps. So this episode is going to be a little bit more complicated because we're really going to geek out. So make sure you download the free PDF at ammonyc.com. Before we can look at the paint, we have to undress it, what we call stripping the wax off. Now, if you guys remember back in the first episode when we cleaned the Audi R8 Blackbird, we talked about dish soap versus car soap. Now, 99% of the time, you want to use car soap. Why? Because you want to leave all the wax on the car. In this particular case, you actually want to use dish soap because it removes all the wax, and then you can actually see what's going on in the paint. Stripping the wax is essential for paint correction and requires little more than switching from soft car soap to strong dish soap, and of course following the same steps as you normally would when cleaning your car. Add a few squirts of dish soap to your clean wash bucket and or foam gun, then rinse down the paint with hose water to remove the loose dirt. Next, use the foam gun or the wash mitt to apply the dish soap that will emulsify the wax, uncovering the paint beneath it. Once the car is completely washed, use your clay bar along with the wash mitt and the dish soap as lubrication and remove any contaminants that may remain embedded in the paint after the initial cleaning. Now we can be sure the surface is uncovered, or what we call naked paint, so that we can see how bad the scratches really are without waxes or silicones hiding them. Now that the car has been stripped, what I like to do is use my crazy tools here to inspect the paint at the microscopic level. What that does is it shows me what's going on and how bad the paint is, and it helps me approach it and fix it or repair it in the best and fastest way. Mind you, these may not be necessary for the weekend warrior, but I still think they're pretty cool. All right, so the first thing I have here is an assortment of lights. And my favorite one is this Brinkmann dual xenon light. Now what I do is I use it by shining it right here on the corner panel, and I can see any of the swirls that are present. And remember, we removed all the wax, so what I'm seeing is actually there. This is a great tool for visualizing how bad the damage is. All right, the second little tool I like to use is my infrared thermometer. Now what I do is I shine it at the paint. Right now it's telling me it's 83.5 degrees. Now anything under 100 degrees is usable, meaning I can actually work on the paint here. If it's above 100 degrees, it's too hot for me. So I'll let it cool down, or I'll put some water on it, or I'll pull it inside the garage. Now the reason why you want it so cool is the products happen to flash, meaning they burn up too fast, and it reduces the rate of abrasion that you can use to fix the paint. So this is a very useful tool to figure out what temperature you're at. Now the most useful tool I have is the Positector paint depth gauge. Now the way you use it is you take this little cord here, put it on the paint, and it tells me there's 894 microns of paint on this car. Now if you get to a lower and a lower and a lower number, at some point it'll tell me that I can't buff the car anymore and I can't restore it. So on occasion I'll come to a customer and say, hey, your paint is really trashed, but there's nothing I can do because I don't want to take away the UV protection or the clear coat on the car. This machine will tell you that, and normally you can't see it just by looking at it. You need one of these. They are a bit pricey, but they're worth every penny. All right, the geekiest tool I have, and probably the most fun, is the Dynolite microscope. Now the way you use it is you put it on the paint just like this, and it gives me an image on the Mac here of all the scratches in the paint. It helps me determine whether I've actually repaired the paint or filled it in. Now this here is really, really high tech. Now as you can see here, we've isolated a very big scratch. All these will come out, but this may give us a little bit of trouble, so I'll keep an eye on that. All right, now that we've stripped the car, clayed the car, and taken a microscope and seen all the little scratches so we can get a better idea of how to approach the car, the next thing that you want to do is you want to create a test panel. And what I like to do is pull my masking tape out just like this, break a little piece off, and the trick is to lightly tap it on your thigh. What that does is it removes the extra glue that's on there. So when you put it on just like this, and you go to pull it off, there isn't that line that's really annoying that you gotta rub it a little bit extra. And so I'm gonna mask off the rest of this and test this panel right now. Using tape allows me to see a before and after shot when determining what products and procedures are working and when it's not. Be sure to keep test areas to one panel only and in the least conspicuous part of the car. Before we can repair the clear coat, it's important to understand what makes up the different layers of paint, how scratches affect your clear coat, and more importantly, how they're removed. Brand new paint, or what we call perfect paint, has a flat, glass-like surface that reflects 100% of the light back to your eye, much like a mirror. However, over time, with poor cleaning habits, the clear coat will develop minor and sometimes major scratches that reduce the amount of reflection, causing it to appear dull. Once wax is applied, it acts as a filler to flatten the surface of the clear coat, once again making your car look shiny. Although the paint looks repaired, it's actually only a temporary or cosmetic solution to the dullness. After a few washes, the wax or filler will degrade, and the once covered scratch will be exposed again, putting you right back in the same situation. So what are we to do? In this case, since we decided to permanently repair the paint, we need to know a little bit more about abrasives and how they work. Compounds and polishes work in almost the same way as sandpaper. In fact, they are sometimes referred to as liquid sandpaper because they are delivered and applied to the paint in a fluid instead of the traditional paper. The trick to understanding the basics of abrasion lies in this chart. The lower the numbers, the more abrasive it is. Likewise, the higher the numbers, the less abrasive it is. Although body shops commonly use heavier and more aggressive products, the sweet spot for detailing and paint correction is roughly 2500 to 4500 grit. The detailing industry uses what's called a diminishing abrasive. It's designed to break down during use or when you're buffing the paint and finishes off at a lighter abrasion than you started off with to help minimize the appearance of the dreaded holograms or swirls commonly found on dark-colored cars. There are three general categories of abrasives when discussing paint restoration: compounds, polishes, and ultra-fine polishes, or what I like to call jeweler's polish. Now, over the years, there's literally been hundreds of derivations and unique blends to address different damages, paint depths, detailer skills, and of course, paint hardness. Now, combine that with hundreds of different pad selections, and you might see how choosing what pad and product to detail your car with might be confusing, but here's a more simplified approach. I stick with 3 core products along with 3 core pads that work 99% of the time, except on those extremely rare and unique paint damage situations. So here's how it works. The compound, polish, and jeweler's polish have their own respective pads, but sometimes the paint requires what I call half steps to be repaired perfectly. For example, if you're using a polish with a polishing pad, and it seems like the paint needs a little bit more bite, but doesn't require the use of a compound, simply switch to the more aggressive compounding pad with the polish to make this a half step instead of a full step. When working on a test panel, it's best to use the least amount of abrasives that are necessary to complete the job because there is a finite amount of clear coat on your car. As you can see in this animation, there are a few small scratches and one deep gouge. Using the least abrasive product first, which is the jeweler's polish, does little to remove these particular scratches because of their depth. Although in some situations this might be enough to bring the paint back to perfect, it doesn't work here, so we need to bump up to the next most abrasive and retest. Next, we tried polishing the test panel and got much better results, but still not good enough, so we moved on to the compound. Compound is the next jump up in abrasion while still being user-friendly. This product should allow you to remove light, medium, and even some heavy scratches to your clear coat. Now that you've removed most, if not all of the scratches, the trick is to back out the paint after you've compounded. This is when you use a less abrasive product than the previous one to create a flat, glass-like surface. Now that almost all the scratches are out, it's time to add paint sealant for increased UV protection and to fill in any super heavy scratches that couldn't be fully repaired. Once dried, the sealant will create a perfectly flat surface that will reflect light just like a mirror. Next, I add a thin layer of carnauba wax on top of the cured sealant for insane depth and shine found on all amazing show cars. Now that we figured out what products and pad combination work best to repair this paint, I love pulling up the test panel masking tape to get a better look of the before and after results, just to be sure I'm happy with the finished product. And because it's really exciting to see the perfect paint correction side by side with thrashed paint, it really gives you a great perspective and, it's kind of cool. Based on the results of our test panel, we've figured out how we're going to approach the rest of the car. But before we do that, we want to tape off all these little badges and emblems and lights, and of course these little guys right here, so we don't catch it with our pad. Masking tape helps protect your car, your buffing pads, and of course makes it easier to clean up at the end of the day. Now that everything is taped off, it's time to get to work. Work in 2x2 areas and complete the rest of the car. Now that we've compounded, polished, and jeweled the paint, the next step is to seal it. Apply paint sealant 1 panel at a time, then remove with a microfiber towel until every painted surface is covered. Once cured, the sealant will protect your freshly restored paint and help hide any scratches that were just too deep to safely repair during the correction stage. Now we've sealed the car so it looks spectacular and it's protected. Now, if you remember back in the previous episodes, we talked about putting carnauba wax on top, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. That's going to bring the pop, that shine, back to this paint. So let's get started. The trick here is to add a light, thin layer of carnauba wax on top of the cured sealant. It's possible to do 2 or 3 panels before removing the wax with a clean microfiber towel, and the car should take no more than 15 to 20 minutes to get insane depth and shine. Although the Porsche took about 8 hours or so from start to finish, it was totally worth it. Remember, we started off with paint that was completely neglected and in need of some serious correction, and after a bit of testing, we managed to restore the paint to near perfection with a safe and easy to use machine. All right guys, well we finally finished this beautiful Porsche Speedster. Now the one thing that we learned is that you need the right tools, you need the right techniques, and a little bit of patience, and you too can have your car look as amazing as this. And remember, download your free PDF and product guide at ammonyc.com. If you have additional questions, shoot me an email or visit my blog for other how-to videos. Well, that's it for me guys. Thanks for watching another episode of Drive Clean right here on the Drive channel.